Hi, I'm your host, Michelle Poverman, a former anxious empath turned mostly grounded psychotherapist, intuitive guide, and energy healer, and this is Into the Work. And it isn't just a podcast. It's your actual invitation to break free from old patterns, end the cycle of your self-abandonment, and finally step into the life your soul has been craving. Each episode is a spark to help you rise higher, to help you shine brighter and reclaim the truth of who you really are. The spark has already been lit. And sister, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's go ignite a fire. Hi, welcome back to the show. Today, I am joined with Sadia Hameed, a transformational guide, an executive coach, and the author of her new, very powerful book, You Are the One, Awaken Your Light Through the Trinity of Self. Sadia guides women into connection with their own leadership, their own nervous system intelligence, and embodied feminine wisdom. And listen, if you have been following along, if you've been watching the show, you have probably noticed we've got a theme going on right now. And that is, these past few weeks, we've been talking about the awakening of the high achieving woman. And I can't think of a better person to bring in right now in the midst of this discussion as Sadia. And she's got so much goods to share. I tell you guys, Sadia and I met in a group coaching program through Jessica's Weg. It is the Feminine Frequency Business School. It was profound. It was ginormous. It was just amazing. And Sadia was my pod leader. We broke us up. She was a previous student. And when I tell you this woman, I brought her on very intentionally because Sadia is not just a light. That would be a beautiful thing on its own. But Sadia is a mic dropper, okay? And when she's talking, you're like, oh shit, I need to rewind that. So you have the beautiful gift today that you get to rewind this because in group, I didn't get to rewind. So Sadia is a beautiful gift and I'm really excited to share her with you. Sadia, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for that generous introduction. And it's my pleasure to be here.
Yay. Okay. So I've kind of primed you up, but here we go. I want to start by just jumping in because what you're going to feel from Sadia is her essence, her leadership. You're going to feel her codes that she's run by, these downloading that she's doing, right? That we all have sort of like this channeling ability, but Sadia definitely has these codes for it. And I want you to know her humanness, right? Her humanity. I want you to know like that Sadia is a person that has struggled. So I'm going to ask you, Sadia, to kick us off by sharing a little bit personal about yourself, to share like what was your breaking point? Like what's something that happened to you in your life that just really shifted the trajectory and made you into or pushed you into your becoming of who you are right now? Like what happened?
Sure. I'm happy to share. I mean, there have been a lot of different inflection points over the course of life that have set me in different directions. But the one that I write about in my book is the one that really broke me all the way open in the best possible way. And that was my most recent experience of burnout that happened in 2024. And that was a moment where I had a 25-year successful career. I was just on my way to launching something new. My 2 kids are still elementary school age, so still need me. And that burnout hit in a different way. It brought me so close to the edge that I realized that there really wasn't much of an option to keep going that way. And on paper, there would be not much reason to burn out. I mean, aside from the fact that busy mom, busy life, running a business, all of those things don't have to equal burnout. On paper and in evidence, I had a schedule that most women would dream of because I had very intentionally created it for myself through moving through my career and also as I was creating my business. I had really good balance between work and home. I had a lot of flexibility and autonomy. I consistently was creating opportunities to be supported. I was taking good care of myself on paper, as in I was checking boxes. I was doing all the right things. but there was something there that wasn't actually translating into a really happy, healthy, joyful, fulfilled way of life. And I realized in that moment of burnout that the pressure I was feeling wasn't just the external circumstances that I was in. Oftentimes, we can't always control those. What was really breaking me on the inside was that I had been resisting myself my whole life in order to create this life that seems so beautiful.
What do you mean by resisting yourself?
So, as I was growing up, when I was little, I often thought that my superpower was being able to get through tough situations with a lot of grace. So I thought, okay, what I'm here for is actually to be able to face really difficult situations and then to thrive and grow through them and to overcome them. And so at a young age, I started learning that. I also learned, as most of us do when we're young, that there are certain behaviors that will bring you certain results or outcomes. And that might be about pleasing people. That might be about performing a certain way. That might be around not fully expressing yourself because it might make the people around you uncomfortable. And so when you're young, or when I was young, I was often taught to position myself in an environment in a way that would make others comfortable so that I could get the outcomes I most wanted. And I perfected that behavior, particularly through my career as a non-Caucasian woman in an industry in the US and Europe, right, working in the nonprofit and philanthropic sector. There were tables I wanted to be at and places I wanted to be in that were largely male dominated, where there weren't a lot of people who looked like me. And I learned how to be a chameleon. I learned how to fit in. Most people would meet me. They couldn't quite place where I was from. I became really good at making other people comfortable. I made it strategic for them to have me in the room because it would actually serve their purpose. And so I spent 25 years navigating this way of being. And I got to do some extraordinary things and be in some really important and influential rooms and help create an impact. And every step along the way, I abandoned some part of myself. I betrayed some part of myself. I silenced some part of myself because I didn't actually believe that I could be in any of those rooms or be achieving the success I had if I were to fully just express myself as myself. And that was 25 years, if not more, of completely resisting a part of me that always wanted to be fully expressed.
So the way you're really looking at how am I resisting myself is literally self-abandoning to fit into what you think everybody wants you to be. And
right. And very often
still climbing and still growing and still, exploring and expanding, but not from your true self, right?
Exactly. So most successful women I know have gotten there through very similar measures. And the few who have gotten there by standing out are still making sure that they're able to perform to standards that none of us had any part in co-creating. They're very masculine. They're very patriarchal. They actually completely ignore our biology, our rhythm, our cyclical and seasonal nature, and ask us to override it in order to be able to be considered, to keep up, to get ahead, to be successful, to even have a shot at being in the room or being considered for so many of the positions that you aspire towards as you're moving through your career. And that's not industry specific. That's pretty much true across the board, especially in a workforce like here in the United States.
Yeah. And so you find yourself in this place where you really are acknowledging this. I mean, so the burnout helped you acknowledge this? Is that what you feel like? You got really burnt out. You were in this place that was asking you to be someone else all the time, asking you not to see yourself as the woman in cycles that you are, right? And so what happened? Because I think there's a lot of people listening that are in your footsteps that have felt completely burnt out, trapped, stuck, right? How did you get out of that? And what did that look like?
Well, and there's so much of denying your feminine self that happens during this time too. So when my daughter is 10 now, so 10, 11 years ago is when I actually started syncing my whole life to my cycles and to the moon.
Mm.
I met this wonderful practitioner. I was struggling to conceive my daughter at the time. I met this wonderful practitioner who said these words to me that I've never forgotten. She said, Sadia, you've had such a complicated relationship with your body, between being obese as a child, struggling with shame, struggling with poor body image, struggling with this impossible way of being that you just don't feel like you can naturally be, right? Like you're contorting yourself. You're trying so desperately to be something. And along the way, if you think about it, most of us as women are really harsh with ourselves. Like we are not very kind to ourselves. If you listen to that inner narrative that's playing, it's often, pretty, sometimes even abusive, right? And she said to me, she said, so imagine that you've been at war with somebody for your whole life, as long as you can remember, and you're really not very nice to them, even though they keep showing up for you every single day and they see you through every situation and they haven't actually abandoned you and you are actually in really good health, but you are not very kind to them. And you wake up one day and you say, hey, guess what? I would love for us to have a baby together. I'm sorry. Right now, she's saying no.
Mm.
And you know that you want to have this baby. I have known the soul of my daughter since I was 5 years old. Like my daughter's soul has been with me my whole life. The thing that I look forward to the most was creating a situation where I felt financially stable enough and secure enough in my career where I could welcome her into the world. So I actually chose to wait a little bit before even trying to conceive. I was already, crossing into 30, which doesn't sound very old, but interestingly, from a reproductive cycle, you're starting to get to the point where it's not necessarily always guaranteed. And she taught me how to come into an understanding of the rhythm of my body. And the best way we can do that is by understanding our body cycles, how it syncs to the moon cycles, what season of life we're in, what season we're in environmentally. And she brought me into a relationship with my body that I had never, ever been in before. Mm-hmm. And so it was something I had been doing for 11 years, but I was doing it quietly, because it came down to like how you schedule your weeks, how you plan your time, when you travel, when you don't. And I can remember at this one very prestigious position I had where I put a few things up in my office that would indicate that I was a little bit woo. And I can remember my boss at the time walking into that area, and I thought it was so beautiful and it kind of lit me up and it made me feel like there was this great energy there. And my boss walked into my little working area and looked around and said, so are you a witch? And everything in my body seized up, because I have in my cellular memory the lifetimes of being accused of being a witch, of what it meant to be a mystic, of what it meant to be a sage, of all those lifetimes. I talk about it in the book that I ended up having to release from my cellular memory of being burnt at the stake, of having my tongue cut out, of being silenced. And in that moment, something comprehended to me in my logical mind, which was, it is not safe for you to demonstrate how deeply tied you are to your feminine wisdom in the workplace. And that stayed with me. That predated me having my children, and it stayed with me for the next, almost 15 years. And so when you think about it, I had already been doing so many things, but I couldn't even do them openly. I couldn't talk about it openly. So when we talk about resisting ourselves, it's not just that we're not following our rhythm. It's that we don't feel like we have permission to embody and live it out loud, fully expressed in the world, without any guilt, shame, or fear of repercussion. And your body and your nervous system, and Michelle, you know this so well, you talk about this all the time, right? Your nervous system is designed for one thing: to keep you safe. So the moment that it registers that something is not safe, it's not going to put you or allow you to be in situations where you're really going to live from that place. So you're hiding yourself. And many women are constantly segmenting and siloing themselves, sometimes with their partners, sometimes in friend groups, oftentimes in the workplace, because they're not sure that it's safe to fully express things that they know to be true, even if they can't explain it. And that's so much about what ancient feminine wisdom really is.
And I think there's some of us, I don't know if this resonates for you per se, but I think what I found on my path was in order to recall my energy, in order to stand in what was truly my assignment here. Even as a therapist, you would think, I think we assume therapists are super open-minded, that like, this would be really easy to go into energy healing as a therapist. But no, I had a lot of side eyes and a lot of like, oh, okay, like this is not, where's the research, and so I had to really become a lone wolf in order to really become sovereign in like I didn't even know how to share it, Sadia. Like I really started kind of pulling away from everybody. I started a private practice, but I didn't actually reach out to other people in that private practice to gain relationships. And even when I got in sort of groups of other spiritual groups of women doing things, some therapists, some other things, I still had found myself in this programming of the lone wolf. Like, I think years of being the lone wolf had kept me in this programming of like, in order to stay safe, in order to manage the energies around it and the judgments and whatever else, right, that might come at me, I started going that route. And I'm sure listeners, that some of us as women have found that in order to really throw ourselves out there and do something, we've had to really, I think it's sort of like that pendulum swing when we aren't necessarily solid yet within, right? We go from being the people pleaser and the overgiver and the overachiever and the over this and the over that, right? And then the pendulum swings. We don't know how to stand in our power and own something. So we have to go to the far, far, far other end of it. So people pleaser has to be, screaming and be full of rage and anger before they actually say something, right? And they don't know yet how to deliver gracefully. They don't know how to stand in their power with ease. And so I think my journey is I'm getting kind of I'm hearing your reflections and it's mirroring a bit for me that that pendulum swing made me go to the other end of like the lone wolf. And now I'm finally in that place where I'm like, oh, okay, I can just safely be here and express who I am and be completely 100% uniquely me. In fact, that's one of the questions, Sadia, that I have to ask myself often, even going into this interview today. I sit down, I put my hands on my heart and I have to ask myself, bring up your most unique self. Be the most you can possibly be. And whatever that is, it doesn't need to match anybody. You don't have to bend over and reflect somebody else's, whatever Sadia needs me to be today. So
just yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But like, I think in our history, right, we have done so much shape shifting to be what people need us to be. Right. And so, yeah.
Well, and for a lot of high performing and successful women, the lone wolf phenomenon is really real. There is also just so much wounding amongst women. We have been trained to compete against each other. We've been trained to believe that the success of somebody else is at the cost of our own success. And these tendencies have really severed us from the collective feminine consciousness, which is about family and community and sisterhood and friendship and understanding that we are each here for a purpose. And it's a lot more lonely when we try to do it together. And so that hyper individualism, I think, comes in as a protection mechanism. And I think a lot of women feel it, and they're far more lonely than they're willing to admit they are. And I akin it to this idea of the night sky, right? Like the night sky would be a lot less brilliant if there was only ever one star shining in it. And we would never say that the other stars and constellations didn't belong in the night sky because there is, for example, the North Star, right? The North Star is also something that you can identify because there are all these other constellations there, and a wayfinder who's using the stars to navigate themselves across the ocean, for example, needs all of them in order to come from one point to another with safe passage. And we are those constellations of stars. And sometimes we burn brighter and sometimes a little less so as we move through our seasons and our life cycles. But every single one of us came here with a purpose. And it's a completely unique purpose. So even if you say, Michelle, that there are many other women who are therapists, and maybe there are therapists who are women and also spiritually inclined, that's wonderful. There's still only one Michelle. There's still only one you. You came in coded with a purpose of being here that is completely and uniquely yours. And if we actually believe that we're connected in a cosmic thread of destiny and that we came here in order to elevate consciousness and to help bring about a shift, then that means that even if I fully do my part, there is a thread in that tapestry that is missing if you aren't able to fully be your fullest self, because the tapestry gets woven together. It is not going to be just one color, one thread. It is going to be all of us weaving together. And the more that we're able to feel really confident and comfortable in ourselves, in our purpose, in the reason why we're here, not from ego, from a place of love, from a place of service, from a place of calm and certainty, then we're able to start moving forward and we're able to do it together collectively. And then you realize you don't really want to be the lone wolf anymore. And it's actually, the lone wolf in itself is also such an interesting analogy because wolves run in packs. And wolves also mate for life. And so the lone wolf in itself is a metaphor for what it means to go against the actual nature of your species, of your being, of yourself.
Okay. Mic drop. Let's just honor that. That was beautiful. And so true. And so true. And I think so many of us don't realize the importance of stepping back into the nature of connection. And we need to weave our way back. And I think listening to this today is just a way of just being reminded of something very old, very, very sacred within us.
And when we're young, we are one of the only species really that I'm aware of that is completely reliant on others for survival for a very long time. Many other species young are for a certain period of time. Many actually are left quite independently almost as soon as they come to be. And this is where we hear about, right, the survival of the fittest and things like that. As a human baby, you absolutely cannot survive on your own for the first year. And I would argue for quite a few years after that. And so it is a natural thing that when we come here, we learn certain behaviors that equal our needs get met and we get taken care of, right? Now, when we come of age and we become adults, no one comes and taps us on the shoulder and says, hey, guess what? Now you're an adult. Now you have such a bigger capacity. All of those programs that kept you safe and surviving up until now, you don't have to keep repeating them. You can actually go through and sort through the ones that really serve you best, and you can retire the ones, thank and retire and release the ones that you don't need to keep doing anymore. So many of the things that we learn, like the people pleasing, all those kinds of things, right? They also come from that place of needing to survive. And at any moment in time, we can choose to be doing it differently. But the last thing, because I know you want to say something, but the last thing, just to connect it back to community and friendships, is that one of the reasons why I think we have such a toxic experience and people have so many toxic relationships, whether they're intimate or they're friendships or they're co-working relationships, is because that survival program from when we were young runs a certain pattern. And we get into that pattern that creates codependency, that creates emotional attachment, that creates a sense of anxiety when something is not met for us by someone else. The most beautiful thing about adulthood is that we get to come into completeness in ourselves. We actually are here to meet all of our own needs so that any relationship we have, our kids, our partners, our parents, our coworkers, our friends, are there to enhance our life and the experience of that life, but they are not there to complete us and we are not there to complete them. And that goes missing all the way. And then a lot of times you get to this point in life, which is around midlife, and that way of doing things doesn't feel great anymore. It's not actually nourishing you anymore. Like it feels much more draining. And I meet a lot of women around this age of life who say, Sadia, I don't really have friends. I don't have a close circle. I don't have friendships that really serve me or where I can be my whole self. And I want anyone who's listening to know that you're not alone. So many of us feel that way. And it's nobody's fault. No one did anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong to end up in this situation. We've all been running a program that we were meant to retire at some point in our late teens. Sorry,
Yeah,
I just wanted to finish that.
No, absolutely. I was only going to ask for more clarification, but you really did it on your own. That was really beautiful. And I think that's a really lovely way of looking at, I kind of look at things as these parts and stages within us, right? And so I can see how you're reflecting upon the permission you're giving, really, the permission you're giving women to really own that cycle can be over, that it's safe for it to be over, that it's time for it to be over. And so now people are listening and saying, yeah, they're listening, they're driving, they're checking this podcast in, and they're like, okay, great. Now tell me what to do, right? How do I start?
How do I do that?
How do I do that? So, I think many of us have these old running programs that, they're powerful. That teenage girl that, could have let this go. She's still pretty powerful, right? And so she is hanging on for dear life, really. And so and this is part of the work, right, is how can we address the fact that we've had this programming running for so long and not sabotage it? Because that's what happens is our old parts, our old programs, it comes in because we don't know other ways. And so our go-to, it seems easier to sabotage something than it is to actually go for something that's unknown. Like it literally feels scarier to do something that you just don't know the outcome than it does to completely sabotage, go into failure, something that just really sucks and is painful. You'll actually choose that. We'll choose that. And so how do we get into the place where we are empowered enough and unsafe enough, I guess is the right word, right? Safe enough to make the choice to walk into the unknown. And this is where I believe we can line this up with your book, right? With like, you are the one, no one's coming to save you sort of thing, right? There's lots of women that will love to sit by your side as you do this, but you're the one, right? So
we are the ones for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I want to start by addressing this idea of the unknown and how to make it safe. And then for me, there are 3 gateways I discovered that are really gentle and to me, the fastest way to actually dismantle all of the programming. So as far as needing for it to be safe, you're exactly right. And this is why things like positive affirmations and mantras on their own don't work, because you can't intellectualize or intellectually bypass an actual system in your body that is set up to scan for safety. And every woman I know has a nervous system that is constantly scanning for safety. And some of that is because we live in a society where unfortunately things happen and women have experiences where they truly are not safe. And your nervous system can't tell the difference between a work deadline and being chased by a lion. It just interprets danger in a certain way and runs a protocol in order to keep you safe from that. So when I think about my nervous system and I think about somewhere I want to be, I haven't been there before. I don't know if it's safe, but I really want to find out. I like to use the metaphor of a crossing guard, right? So you can talk to all of your patterns and your programs. They're actually very loving and they're there to support you. The most beautiful thing you can do is actually stop villainizing them. There's nothing wrong. They're not doing anything bad. They love you. They want you to survive. They want you to stay alive. And it's not that they don't want you to thrive. It's that they can only use the evidence of the experiences they've had. Those are experiences in this lifetime since you were born. They are also the collection of experiences from your lineage that get transferred into your cellular memory when you come into this lifetime. So in your body, and I talk about this in the book, you're not just carrying what feels like your own weight, you're carrying something that goes back generations.
Mhm.
And it's important to be aware of that because sometimes it feels a lot heavier than your situation might be. And so you feel disproportionate. And in those moments of it feeling disproportionate, this is where women get gaslit. You're emotional, you're exaggerating, you're hysterical, all these buzzwords that make women seem like they're out of control, right? So then we try to be masculine and we try to suppress the emotion, which only compounds it and makes it worse. So when you start seeing your nervous system and your patterns as just like, something that's running inside you, like crossing guard, and you go into it and you say, you know what? Hi, I'm so happy to be spending time with you today. Thank you, because I know you're here because you want me to be safe and alive, and I am. And I'm so grateful for that. There's this place I want to go to, and it's over there across the street. And I'd really love for us to go there. Nervous system pattern will be like, well, I don't know. I don't know, Sadia. Like, I don't know if you can cross the street right now, even though, there's a green walk sign on and I don't see any cars on the road. But what if suddenly a truck comes and runs you over? Like, I just don't know. So I think that we should just stay right here because we're alive and we're safe. Okay, you're right. Thank you. Then you ask it, what do you think is going to happen if I cross the street? And I'm making a clear decision. We're not being rash. We're not sort of just like being impetuous, right? Like people think that intuition makes you rash and impetuous. It's the absolute opposite. It makes you precise, clear, calm, strategic, exact. It's like, okay, you're not just going to run across the street. So you're going to create the conditions that give you a sense that I can get across the street safely. So you talk to the crossing guard, and I remember going into one of my patterns, and it was really interesting because the answer wasn't what I thought it would be. I thought it said, well, I'm here to keep you safe. The answer was, well, Sadia, like, I'm not really sure if we can just let go of all the trauma and not have any drama in life because you're here to live a big life, and I don't want you to be bored. I'm here to make sure my pattern is designed to make sure that you don't live a boring life. And I thought, that's super cool. And also we're doing it in a way that's really not serving me. Like, I got you. You're right. I would not be happy if I lived a boring life. But we can actually create not boring through all these other ways. We don't have to create not boring through overworking and people pleasing and self-abandoning and toxic relationships and fighting with the kids. We don't have to create it that way. We could create it this way. And I want to be able to cross the street. And you're going to help me cross the street. So I love you so much. It's time for a promotion. Your old work orders have now been suspended. Here are your new work orders. Sadia does not want to be bored. She wants to not be bored in this way instead of this way. Let's cross that street together. And you start taking small actions, small things. And every day that you do something small, that is a behavior change, and you trust it, and you give your body a moment to integrate it and realize that nothing bad happened and you didn't die and you're still safe, it goes, oh, interesting, logs that as a memory. And then it goes, okay, you know what? You're right. This feels a lot better than that. I'll let you take another step, another step, another step, and you will be across that street before you know it. And it will just be a way of life. So this is when I talk about nervous system regulation, yes, the somatic breathing, the exercise, the crying, like all of that is a part of nervous system regulation, the emotions, the understanding your emotions. But for me, I literally talk to my nervous system like this every single day and renegotiate with those patterns every single day. And then it starts to trust me more. And the more it trusts me, the more I feel confident to follow the guidance inside, the sharper my intuition is. my inner genius comes online. The inner genius is the way that your soul codes are communicated through your nervous system and your intuition so that you can actually understand and act on them. You start doing things that might not seem logical to other people. They don't have to. They are part of how you start moving towards your destiny. And it all feels so calm and so certain that you're not in frenetic energy. You're not doubting yourself anymore. It doesn't mean that life's not challenging, and it doesn't mean that it won't be uncomfortable at times. Those things are almost guaranteed, but it's not going to be sort of this crazy, tumultuous experience. And so getting to this place where women are actually back in tune with their intuition and they can understand what that feels like in their body and how to start having these conversations with the hundreds of crossing guards that we hired and appointed in our youth. And we just give them all new job descriptions and we repurpose them, and it happens quickly. We're not negotiating with them. We're not doing this. We're not crying for weeks, right? Emotions will come and go, but we're doing this fast. We're intentional. We're gentle. We're kind. We're a bit humorous about it. We're understanding. We're loving. And the more, when you go through the gateways that I can talk about in a second, you know, this process starts to become so intuitive and so fast that you don't even necessarily know you're doing it. You might actually do it the way I described it the first few times. And then after that, it just becomes something that happens quite naturally.
Yeah, I mean, that was so much to unpack there. And we only have so much time. We could do this for weeks. So yes, I want to start by saying one of the things that I'm hearing that I just am really resonating with and that I talk a lot about is this real need to be present for all of this. So in order for you to do that with your crossing guards is to actually show up in the moment it's happening, right? And get off of autopilot and really step into being present for yourself. And I love that you said, like, I'm literally having these conversations. Like, I was literally in my closet this morning having the conversation. Like, I'm always having these conversations with my nervous system. I don't even call it my nervous system, but you know, it's like this inner self that just like needs a talking to all the time. And it's really just, hey, I feel that, I acknowledge that. And how can this be a level better? How can I feel better in this moment? What would I like to feel like in this moment? And then ask myself, yeah, I would like to feel joyful about today. I don't know why I have anxiety about today. Okay, I'd like to feel joy. So what kind of shit do I need to say to myself to feel joy? All right, and bing, bada bang, there you go. And all of a sudden I'm like, I feel super joyful. I just want to highlight the resistance that a lot of us don't realize we have to everything you're saying, which is so this beautiful thing that's this huge awakening that you're talking about, is that a lot of us just have that programming that it's not safe to be happy. And throughout my years, I've been like asking people on the couch, like, if I had a magic wand and I could just make you 100% happy, would you take it? And they'll be like, in the beginning, and this is not to like be, you know, toxic with emotions. Like, we need the whole range, but just put that aside for a second. And I'll say, can you be happy? Will that be okay with you? And first they're like, of course, Michelle. But I'm like, okay, but I want you to really think about it. Because what if I can really do that? And they'll be like, well, wait a minute.
Scary.
It's scary because what if I'm getting duped? What if somebody's taking advantage of me? What if all this fear comes in and we are afraid of being happy for too long, you know? So we don't tolerate it very well.
Well, because we haven't, so a lot of the
Our nervous system.
Right. A lot of the feminine lineage carries a coding of women needing to survive rather than being able to be happy and thrive. And so You Are the One talks about women who are awakening to this idea that they've done all these things and life just doesn't feel as wonderful as they want it to. They're not as happy as they want to be. And you're not happy all the time, right? This is not that you're like laughing all the time. You still have the full range of emotions. Happiness and joy is actually a frequency and a state of being, which means you can be joyful and grieving at the same time. And so when you come into this awareness, you actually are able to give yourself permission. So suffering is a chosen state of being. And in every moment, the only moment that exists is the present moment. The past is gone. The future is not here. And we're always making a choice. We're either choosing to be in fear or to be in faith. And I don't mean religious faith. I mean a trust in oneself, a trust that things are meant to work out, that you're here to succeed. And choosing faith over fear is something we're doing every day. And it really does require someone to consciously decide that that's what they're going to do every moment of the day, every day of the week, every week of the month, every month of the year. It requires a conscious effort. And you give yourself permission to stop suffering, and then you stop suffering. Like, people are like, there's no way it happens that fast. And I'm like, it does. Because the moment we decide that we don't want to suffer anymore, then we have the choice. We can let go of the identity, of the behaviors, of the beliefs that are keeping us stuck in that state of suffering, and we swap them out for something instead. So you release them, you recode them, you release them, you recode them, and then you reclaim a different state of being and a different way of living. And one of the ways that you give yourself permission to be joyful is you have to actually know what you want. And the truth is, most women I meet don't really know what they want. So I ask people when I meet them, anyone who wants to work with me, what is your deepest desire in life right now? And they'll give me an answer. And I'll be like, nope, your deepest desire, the one you won't say out loud, even to yourself. And then it will be like, there'll be that pause. And either they won't know, or they just won't want to say, or something in them will stir. And the way in which I help women get to this deep desire is through the 3 gateways. So it's devotion to self, reintegration of self, and then sovereignty of self. Devotion to self is the first place every woman needs to start, because we were always taught to be devoted to everything outside of ourselves, but we were never actually taught how to be devoted to ourselves. And devotion is this enduring, long-lasting relationship. It's kind and loving and beloved and eternal, and everything we long for from someone else that we've never given to ourselves. When you come into a devotion to yourself, it's not from ego, it's from pure love. And from there, you start to be able to hear yourself. Like, what do I really want? I really don't want to feel so tired. I really don't want to do this thing that, I want to be doing this other thing instead. Like, I'm really not happy in this place I'm living. I really wish I could do that thing that I gave up so many years ago, right? You start, when you come into a devotion to yourself, you start hearing things that you've been silencing and suppressing on autopilot for so long. And at first you feel guilty because you're like, I should be grateful for the life I have. I should be grateful for everything I have. Yes, we can be grateful and also have bigger desires at the same time. And then the reintegration comes when you ask yourself, what's stopping me? Like, why do I keep stopping myself? At what point was I told or led to believe that something in this desire I have was not safe, not accepted, needed to be suppressed? That's where all our guilt, our shame, our self-abandonment, our self-betrayal lives. Most women, they look at this and they're like, I don't want to go there. And I'm like, it's gentle. Actually, what you're doing is you're just lovingly calling them all back to you. So the most beautiful thing about realizing that you're at this age is that you have so much experience. And as you devote to yourself, you become really certain of yourself and really forgiving of yourself and more responsible for yourself and kinder to yourself. And then you're able, like a wonderful mom or a wonderful adult figure, able to call all those parts of you back. You don't have to live from them. You don't have to become them, but you call them all back so that you can decide which parts of yourself show up, how you want to be, but you're not in fragments anymore. And in this reintegration, you come into a feeling of wholeness that all of us have been searching for in every partnership, friendship, workplace, relationship that we have ever engaged in our parents and our kids. We find it in ourselves. And suddenly all of you is back again. All your talents, all your skills, all the edgy parts of you, all the parts of you that other people didn't like, all the parts of you that are a bit dangerous. Your talents are still there in those parts of you that you suppressed. How you leverage them and use them is entirely up to you. The point is that you deserve and have the right to have them all within you and to have that full array of yourself. And sovereignty of self is taking full responsibility. So when we started and you asked me what my breaking point, and I said it was the burnout, the part of it, though, that really catalyzed the transformation for me was when I became so sick of my own excuses. There wasn't anyone else to blame. I had a laundry list of people I could blame. And I have a lot of pretty intense experiences through my lifetime that under a victim narrative would completely warrant me blaming everyone else. When I realized, though, through reintegration and devotion, that I was co-creating every single experience in my life, even the ones I didn't want, then instead of feeling bad, or even angry, I felt powerful because I was like, oh, Sadia, if you can create all those experiences, imagine what you can, like, if you can create that from suffering, if you can create this whole life you have from suffering and abandoning yourself, can you imagine what you can create from a full sense of self, a full command of your desires, and from the frequency of love and joy for yourself and out to others? And that moment was the first time that I actually felt what power felt like in my body, not the power that forces, the power that ignites and lifts you up. And that was something I wanted more and more of. And in order to have that, me and the crossing guard had to have lots of conversations about letting go of the identity of me that had been built around survival, that had been built around trauma, that had been built around hardship. I had to be willing to forgive her, let her go, reintegrate her, send love to anyone else in that situation in order to be able to actually step into the fullness of that power. And again, those processes can happen quickly as soon as we give ourselves permission to. Like, I released lifetimes of trauma in minutes, in days. And I guide women through really gentle ways of doing that because we're not staying there to analyze it. We're not here to get a PhD in our own trauma. We're here to say, thank you. I'm ready for a new program. I know what it is. I love myself. I'm certain I feel this power and I want to follow it. And we literally archive all of that. We're not disembodying ourselves, right? We archive it. And we run a whole new program and we bring ourselves online in the most spectacular way.
And the gold in that, there's so much gold, but one of the pieces of gold in that is that we stop creating from suffering. And I think that's part of why we ask women, what do you want? And I just ran a program where we all started with trying to decide what it is that we want. And I have this beautiful meditation you do and blah, blah, blah. And it's like really powerful, but most women really struggle with not knowing how to say what I want. And what you just described really helps us look at, if I can do that, if that's just that beautiful, incredible, powerful permission of like, if I can create from suffering, what could I possibly create from a whole self? Maybe even that is the bridge, the crossing guard comes in and helps you walk over. But like, how women can get to the point where they can sit and say, I want to just visualize something. Just even asking a woman to visualize what she wants. And that can be the most uncomfortable experience for some women. And so for what I hear you saying through this practice, I don't think we got to number 3 yet, right? We just did 1 and 2.
Sovereignty of self. Right. I started talking about it. So it's basically where you take radical responsibility for yourself.
Okay.
You're not waiting for anyone to save you. You're actually reclaiming it, but you're commanding yourself and your life, truly. And that means you're taking responsibility for all the stuff that's not going so well as well. Like
radically.
I had to sit up and say radically, lovingly, but radically. And when you finally step into that place where you are the one steering your own ship, where you are the one who is the captain, and you have gone through this process, right, of the devotion and the reintegration, what happens is that in that soul code I talked about, like that little seed that comes that knows how to become an apple tree, that seed in us that knows what it is we're here and destined to become, that whole program's already in us. It's just under this fog of all of the survival programming that we developed as kids and that we kept going. And as you devote to yourself and reintegrate yourself and you take responsibility for yourself, the fog starts to move away and the precision starts to come in. And so you get guidance that is, it will tell you who you need to work with, where you need to go, what decisions you need to make. I can wake up every day and in a couple of minutes get a download of how she wants to move, what she wants to eat, who I need to talk to. It
Mm-hmm.
all comes, it's precise. We are already coded with it. The only thing we need to do is come into a presence and a frequency in ourselves where we're able to hear it and then have that trust in ourselves that is not listening to the outside noise, that is so certain, that is then willing to follow it. And this is what quantum leaping and collapsing time and acceleration is actually all about. It's listening to your own code and following it because it's going to give you the fastest way to get to the outcome that it sees to be the most beneficial for you. And what often happens, this happened when I was working with Jessica. Jessica's like, she did this for me. And this is often what happens when women work with me is in order for your codes to come fully online, as you're moving through this process, it's really helpful if you encounter somebody who's able to stabilize the field for you. So they're not awakening your codes. They don't know your codes. They're not accessing your codes. What they're able to do is stabilize the field around you enough where all your codes come back online for yourself.
Hmm.
And that's what happened to me. I was in the Feminine Frequency Business School, and I went there to come up with a business plan for a business that I don't even run anymore. But what happened in that program was much less about the business and much more about being in the presence of somebody that my soul recognized as a stabilizer, an activator, an accelerator for me. So women will hear me speak on a podcast or catch me on social, and they'll say, something in your voice activated something in me, or I listened to you and all of a sudden, like I went somewhere and I don't even know where it was, or I listened to you and this thing came up and I thought, I can't really do that. And the only thing that's happening is I'm here. This is part of the purpose I'm here for.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I'm communicating, every time I'm engaging, every time I'm putting something out, my intention is that my voice codes will carry and resonate with anyone who's meant to be in my frequency so I can stabilize the field for them so they can come into full capacity, awaken those codes and start to live from them and embody them, because we're not always going to be able to be in someone else's field all the time. We need to know how to anchor it for ourselves. But much like a car battery that's gone dead, we need a jump start. And that's what it does. And it's part of the reason why I have complete trust that anyone who's meant to find me and work with me will. And that's those who aren't, there's someone else out there that is meant to play that role for them. And so many of these women will go on to play this role for others, whether it's their own children or their partners or in their workplaces or in their profession. And this is how we actually create the awakening. Like this is what the awakening really looks like.
Absolutely. We're all like tuning forks and, like we're resonating. And so that theory of resonance. And so, yeah. And I think I talk to a lot of women who are creating business, especially in the newer stages of creating business. They are really challenged with understanding this concept because they think, how am I going to get people? How am I going to, right? Like they don't understand this concept that it's actually just through being. It's really just through being. And through being and putting yourself out there to be seen, heard, and known is simply enough on some levels, right? And so I love how you just broke that all down. Super powerful. I really think we could talk forever about this because it's just so, these are just such beautiful conversations. You guys, if we weren't running out of time, I would keep going, but I think we should probably start wrapping up. I'm not even gonna take us in any other directions because I think you've really nailed some beautiful messaging here, Sadia. I'm so grateful for you coming on the show today. I think there's a lot of people in the audience right now listening that are super resonating. How can people find you? I will have your book and your website in the show notes. Is there anything else you want to invite people to at this time?
Sure. Well, if anyone's on social media, you can find me at sadia.hameed.co. As Michelle said, she'll have my website and my book on there. If you're interested in getting in touch with me or learning more about what I offer. It's all on there. I'm actually going to be hosting a free event really soon on April 8th. All my programs are opening up, and there will be free events and then opportunity to join and come in and work with me as the spring kicks off. So, and if you're hearing this after that, that's okay. It'll keep moving throughout the year. Just come onto the site and you'll find all the details there.
All right. Okay. So just to wrap us up, next week we are talking about the intersection of intuition, ambition, and identity expansion. Because, when your intuition gets louder and your ambition starts pointing you to something bigger, which we know and we hope is going to happen, you can't keep living from the identity that was built through people pleasing and shrinking and the old stuff that we talked about today. So this is going to fit so beautifully next week. This episode next week is going to be about reclaiming your authority so you can start answering the calling that's quietly been waiting for you. Have a beautiful week. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me on Into the Work, Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. If this episode spoke to you, please follow the podcast and leave a review. It is the best way to spread this healing work to other women. Your presence here matters. Step into your power, heal your soul, and rise with women who are doing the same. Keep joining us every week, and together we can heal the world. If you're ready to dive deeper, grab your free Shadow Work Transformation Bundle in the show notes, and I will look forward to seeing you next week.